Pleasure to meet you. Okay. If we're all ready to go, then we'll get started with Coach May. We're going to get started with Dan here right on the aisle, third row.
Dan Walken with USA Today. Hey, Dusty. So, three guys that were on your Florida Atlantic team are playing in the Sweet 16 on various teams. First of all, I'm curious sort of, what that says about sort of the enduring nature of that run for you. And also with the talk that, hey, is Cinderella dead? You being only a couple years removed from that, are you buying into that NIL, the portal, has killed the Cinderella run?
Well, I've really enjoyed watching our entire team that separated. When you see the number of guys, and we knew it in practice, our backups were really, really good. And then obviously Elijah and Nelly and Vlad, they're such competitors that impact winning and make those around them better. So just them being in new situations it's been fun to watch, and we all stay in really close contact. We're in group chats. We follow each other closely, so it's been a lot of fun. The second part, I don't think Cinderella's dead. I think she's probably not going to be as making visits as frequently as she did before. I look at it like this. We lost a few players at FAU early on, and one left before we thought he was an all-league player. And we're obviously disappointed. Everyone's upset. And my response was always, hey, we get paid to coach basketball, to do the best we can. If they decide to leave, then we got to support them. Now, what we have to do a better job of is making sure we keep these guys long enough to be all-conference. And then if they leave, then that's just part of it. But we can't lose them before they're going to be all-conference or all-conference level players. So, I think it's just going to be a group that kind of emerges out of nowhere. And even in our case, we'd had the year before, we were really good, but we'd had injuries. We lost games we shouldn't have lost. And so that kept our guys probably from being recruited as aggressively because we just weren't on the same stage. So a lot went into that, a lot of layers to it. But I don't think Cinderella's dead, especially when we see how good of basketball is being played at Division II level, especially when you look at, Josh Schertz is a close friend, Ben McCollum's a good friend, Jim Crutchfield down at Nova. Those guys move up, and they're good basketball players. So I think it's just going to look different.
Third row here on the left on the aisle.
Coach Chris Ballas at the Wolverine on three. The way they use Broome offensively, Auburn, can you just talk about how unique it is and how you have to be prepared defensively without giving away state secrets?
Yeah, I think we're all aware at how lethal he is on the block and getting to where he wants to get to and drawing fouls. And he's added a three-point shot, and then he's a very good passer, and he kind of quarterbacks their offense. So he's a challenge on a number of levels. We actually recruited Janai aggressively at FAU, and there were four big guys in the same year in South Florida, and at that time we couldn't oversign, and Giancarlo Rosado committed before Broome. We begged him to wait until the spring. He wanted to go ahead and get it over with, so he committed to Morehead State. So I can't imagine if he was on our FAU teams as well. But he's a good basketball player. He's always been a guy that just produced. He's been effective even before anyone knew who he was. He was getting doubles every night against high-level players. So we just got to make everything tough. We got to challenge his catches. We got to push him off a step or two. Just make life difficult for him.
We've got two on the back row on the left. Let's go first in the middle of the back row.
Yeah, Dusty, Bob Wadowski, Detroit News. Last time you lost a game, obviously an infamous game or famous game, whatever, against Michigan State, but you said after there that you have to get to that level of toughness and culture and everything else. You haven't lost since then. What changed so quickly after that?
Renewed commitment by our players to look ourselves in the mirror and realize we have to do this, and this to be better. And credit the staff. They challenged our guys in practice, and our players responded. We changed and granted, we had 5 games in 14 days, so we really weren't practicing. We were getting a little bit loose. We were getting away from what made us us, but we just felt like we kind of just got to get through this stretch. So we felt like once that happened, we had a week to practice. We had a week to kind of regroup, refocus. And when you have good players they care about each other, they want to do better, usually if you just point them in the right direction, they go with it, and they embraced the physical toughness, the things we worked on in practice. They embraced it, and therefore they made a jump. And then, I think just the rest also helped, just not having so many games.
On the aisle in the back row.
Clayton Safey with the Wolverine. Coach, you talked about maybe you guys focused a little bit too much on the regular season title back then, but now underseeded, the edge that you talked about coming into last week. Do you feel like this team plays a little bit better with that chip on its shoulder as an underdog?
Probably. You know, when you look at where we all came from, you know, none of us were in the McDonald's game. None of us were in the up-and-coming coaches list. And so, yeah, probably that's probably just who we are. We have a chip on our shoulder, and maybe because of our positioning where we were, maybe we lost that chip. I don't know. It's obviously resulting, but anytime we don't win a championship, I'm going to look back and think I should have did this different. I maybe made the same decisions along the way. But nonetheless, yeah, I think we have a group that embraces that chip on our shoulder and that underdog role.
Far right on the back row.
Brennan Quinn from The Athletic. Dusty, can you recount your first time seeing Danny on film? And does it like swing open doors of imagination of what was possible with kind of his weird skill set?
Absolutely. Obviously, the first thing we look at in the portal is offense and physical traits and winning and whatnot. And yeah, as soon as we watched Danny, we knew we could make it work offensively. We just had to make sure that it would work defensively. And to be honest, the first time I watched him, I thought he's more physical than I imagined from just I'd watched him a few times on television, and you're flipping through and Yale's playing Princeton or whatever, and they're both well coached, and so you just kind of want to take a peek at it. But I thought at first glance, this guy's more physical than I thought. He has better lateral quickness than I would assume of a 7-footer in the Ivy League. And so then I immediately called and texted the guys that were going to be on staff and said, hey, do you mind watching one or two games? Pick out the Kansas game or the Gonzaga game. Let's pick out the games with high major athletes, and let's just really watch and try to, predict whether he can guard those guys or he can't. And Coach Boynton, Coach Church, Coach Williams, and all the guys that we knew were going to be in the fold all said the same thing. Yeah, he can do it. And so I said, okay, so I'm not crazy. And they all were as convicted as I was. No, we can make this work.
Two questions on the left side, first and the second row.
Coach Jerry Humphrey III, AL.com. You and Bruce Pearl both have connections to the state of Indiana. Will this be you guys' first time crossing paths? And what is it like, battling out on this stage of the tournament?
It's not our first time crossing paths. I was sitting out as a Division II player at Oakland City. We played in USI's tournament when Coach Pearl had the Screaming Eagles at the top of college basketball, and they were their university was 20 miles apart. Actually, in that tournament, if I remember correctly, it was Central Oklahoma State, who had Eddie Robinson played there, an NBA player. There were some really, really good teams, and then there was us. So very familiar with the program he built there. And then his dad, when I took the FAU job, I was out trying to round up fans one at a time. And so I'd go to breakfast with old guys, coaches, and lunches. And his dad was in some groups that would go, it'd be former players from the Celtics from the 30s or whatever, and they would meet and talk ball for lunch. And so I'd go have breakfast with those guys and have lunch. And then Stephen Pearl and I, we've crossed paths for years recruiting. So extremely familiar with Coach Pearl. And then when I was assistant at Florida was when he came into the league. So there's been a lot of, a few degrees of separation with Coach Pearl, but couldn't have more respect for the way he's been able to sustain winning, build programs wherever he's been, and be at the top of college basketball.
Far left, back row.
Deshaun Tate from three-point conversion here in Atlanta, Coach. Obviously, all 4 coaches in this region have Final Four experience. From your personal experience when you went through it, is there anything that you're kind of learning, lessons or things that you implement from that time that you're bringing into this game and kind of sharing that with your guys on what they should be able to expect this weekend at all?
Yeah, a big part of it is simply minimizing distractions, the tickets, the fans, the people coming from everywhere, just wanting to be a part of it. And it's all healthy. I mean, we want to share this experience with as many people that we love and care about. But there's also an element of this is that we have to focus on the work. We have to focus on what we've done to get us to this point. And in addition to especially a group that we're not supposed to be here, so we're not content just being one of 16, or we're not content competing for an Elite Eight, that we still have. We feel like we can compete with anyone in the country. So why would we come here and just be complacent and content that we're here? Let's keep our head down. Just focused on the work and see where it takes us. And hopefully we look up in a couple weeks and we're really, really proud of what we did in the rearview mirror. But when we look at it now, it's just. It's a waste of time. So we're really just, and for me personally, I was in awe the first time, like, wow, this is happening. And it was so different because you weren't at Michigan. But now it's kind of like, we have another 4-team tournament in Atlanta. we've got to prepare for this game, and we've got to be ready for this, this, and this. And so just it's allowed me to separate the emotion, the excitement from it.
3 on the right, first in the back row.
Hey, Coach, Gunter Schroeder with USA Today. Wanted to ask you, you have 2 guys that know how to beat Auburn maybe a little bit more than most people. Obviously, you recruited Trey from there after 2 years at Auburn, and Danny just beat them in the NCAA tournament last year with Yale. So what is insight from both sides of the aisle, from a guy that played there and a guy that beat them in a tournament setting, kind of give you when you're preparing for such an elite opponent like Auburn?
Well, obviously, Trey has a lot of insight with his teammates, with the system and all that. But Coach Pearl's going to change his calls. They're going to have different names. And so it's going to be very similar to every other scout. As far as Danny knowing how to beat Auburn, if you play a team and, if we could beat the Hawks 1 out of 100 times, it doesn't mean that I know how to beat Quinn Snyder and the Hawks. So, but obviously, Danny did say, hey, a couple times against our press, we tried to do this. A couple times against this switch, we tried to do this. And they're really, really good insight. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to execution. And I'm not sure any of us know how to beat Auburn other than play really, really good, sound, poised basketball for about 80 possessions, hopefully.
Down front here on the right.
Robbie LaStella, bracketshere.org. In today's age of college basketball, it can be tough to get a team to gel with a first-year staff right away. You guys haven't had an issue with that. What would you say your keys to success in doing that were, and was there maybe a defining moment where you saw it all come together?
Yeah, I think that number one, we've tried to intentionally choose like-minded people, and then like-minded people are typically gravitate towards those that are like them. So, I've said this in recruiting actually in the last couple of days in Zooms and whatever the case, that a-holes don't like us and we don't like them. So we just naturally go after guys who have a lot of character and are great people, and guys that we want around our families and we want to have lifetime relationships with. So it's just kind of happened. I don't want to say even unintentionally, because it's kind of the fabric of who we are. But for whatever reason, we find guys, they're like-minded, and we're all on the same page, and we know we all need each other.
Pat on the 4th row on the right
Hey,
side.
Dusty. Pat Forty from Sports Illustrated. I'm wondering if you've ever counted for Vlad between screens, rebounds, post offense, defense, how many collisions he has a game, and kind of how he's maintained his ability to play through all that.
It's a great question, Pat, and I've been disappointed in Vlad because sometimes I feel like he conserves. When you watch Vlad in the last 5 minutes of any game since I've had him, he puts his body through torture every day of the year, and there's still a different level in the last 5 minutes. And he even told one of the assistants recently that in the first half he flashes a lot more, and a lot of his turnovers are on the perimeter in the first half. And he basically said, look, there's so many collisions, there's so much contact, I try not to use it all up in the first half for that reason. So that's pretty observant. But yeah, Vlad, he finds contact. He wants to help his teammates. So the screening, the ducking in, all the stuff that comes with playing with physicality, helping your teammates is important to him. And Vlad's just such a pleaser and an unselfish player that he's going to do whatever his teammates need. But Vlad for 35 minutes and Vlad for the last 5 he almost turns into a superhero the last 5 minutes with the things he does as far as offensive rebounding, running the floor, putting us in position to win. And that's a sign of a competitor. When the stakes are heightened, he elevates his play.
We've got 2 on the far left, and then we'll see what time we have left.
And Dusty, Carlos Menars, Detroit Free Press. Trey's been a little touchy about talking about his experience at Auburn with us, at least. How has he been with you talking about his experience? And could there be a little bit more of that inside, this guy likes to go to his left in this situation, like that really inside intel that you can't get from a scouting report?
Yeah, but even the player that Trey shared minutes with last year is playing for Alabama right now. The personnel's different. Obviously, we all know Janai Broom. He's got a little bit of insight, and Baker and those guys and Mazzara, but he hasn't. From my understanding, he's very appreciative of his Auburn experience. They won. It's got him to where he is now as a person. So no, he's never been negative at all about BP or his teammates or anyone. I think it's just he needed a change, and that's not always unhealthy. I said that the other day that I was in the transfer portal last year. A lot of these players are in transfer portal. Sometimes change is healthy at different stages of your life, and he just needed a fresh start, and he's found a place where he's been embraced, and he's had a bigger role, and he's certainly produced for us and made big shots and continued to grow. He's getting better day by day, week by week.
Far left on the fourth row.
Dusty, Ken Segura, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You brought up you being in the portal. That kind of brings a question I had. I think there are people that begrudge athletes for chasing bigger opportunities and more money. I'm curious, what would you say to those critics who don't like the system as it is?
I think every situation is different. Literally, every single situation is different. Sometimes this might be I know what players make in Finland. I know what players make in Cyprus. I've coached them. They've went there. So there's different situations for everyone. If you're a legit pro prospect, in my opinion, you should go to wherever you think puts you in position to make what the Hawks players make. And so then there are other players where this might be the end of the road. They have, we had a really, really good player at FAU that had another year. He graduated. He didn't want a master's, and we talked about it, and we didn't think there was a whole lot of cartilage left in his knees, and it was probably time for him to go make money back home. And he's having a heck of a career. And if it was today, it would be, hey, you might want to go try to capitalize on it and make as much money next year as you possibly can, because I was a young coach that struggled to have a down payment on a house. I was a young coach that if your car broke down, it might set you back a little bit. So every situation's different. Different backgrounds. What's your objective when it comes to education? Is education really important to you, or is basketball? You're in college just for basketball. So I don't begrudge anyone. Like I said, when we lost guys before anyone knew who FAU was, my message was always, hey, we get paid to coach basketball, and we're going to do that at the absolute best we can. We're going to pour into these guys, and if they decide this isn't for them, then we're going to give them a hug. We're going to cheer like heck for them going forward. Is it going to sting? Yes, because we want to win. We want to win every single night. But I'm also realistic to everyone has a different background and their situation, and it looks a lot different than everyone else's. So.
Last question on the back row on the left.
Bob Wadowski, Detroit News. I'm interested in what else has changed during this hot streak for you guys. Turnovers, LJ Kaysen has had more of a role. If you had to pinpoint a few things that have sparked your guys from kind of a down point late in the year, what would it be?
Obviously, the turnovers, we've been much more consistent, not turning the ball over. I think our guards have done a better job, and I don't know the numbers and data, but my eyes tell me our guards have done a better job of defensive rebounding, which has helped our transition offense. We just look like a much more connected group. I know really since the Michigan State game that you're referring to, since then, when I just sit down and look on the court, I feel like it's a group that's just came together and they're trying to win. There's no there's no situations where he's trying to get this shot, or he's trying to score, or he's trying to do this, or he's trying to do things he's not very good at. It just, when I watch this, it's five guys out doing whatever they can to in their function to help the team win, and so that's it. And I think every team has a stretch like that where everyone's consumed with one thing, winning. Sometimes it's early, sometimes it's late, and sometimes it's fleeting. But it's really nothing more than that right now. I look at it and I see our guys doing what they do really, really well, organically, and just trying to make it work.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we'll get started with the student athletes. We'll go second row here on the left. We'll start there. His mic is not on.
Jerry Humphrey III, AO.com. Trey, matching up against your old team, has this been a game that's been circled on your calendar since the transfer?
I wouldn't say it's circled. It wasn't, the likelihood of this happening wasn't really high. So just the opportunity is a blessing, and I'm looking forward to it.
On the far right here in the fourth row.
For Vlad, Pat 40 from Sports Illustrated. Just asked your coach about the number of collisions you get into in a game, whether it's screening, rebounding, playing defense or offense. He said maybe you slip more screens and avoid contact earlier in a game to save it for later. I don't know if that's you think that's the case, but kind of talk about you embracing a high contact playing style.
I mean, we know they're one of the most physical teams, so we just have to like adjust and play as physical as they are, but we're gonna see how they defend, how they play, and if I need to slip some screens, I'm gonna slip some screens. But if they're not gonna switch, and we're just gonna get a couple hits.
On the far left in the third row.
You know, Trey, just about the Auburn thing again. Is there something, you know, because you have a very personal connection with them, just some intel, some inside knowledge that you can share with the coaches as far as, you know, their player tendencies, anything that goes beyond maybe just a scouting report or statistics?
I mean, 100%. I mean, I was there for 2 years, so I know how it operates. I know how everything runs. And when you're around people for so long, you catch on to what they do for sure. So I mean, I definitely have tried to help as much as I can with that aspect, just to give us our best chance to win.
Third row here on the aisle, on the left.
Glad Chris Ballas with the Wolverine on 3. You told us before the season that you thought this team had championship DNA, that you could make a run. What made you so confident after being with these guys for just a few weeks?
It's just like I don't know, like connection with the guys, the work ethic, and like all the small things that like not many people can see. You only can see it only when you work with them, and that's something that I think I was able to see.
Third row on the aisle.
Dan Walken from USA Today for Danny. Coach May was in here saying, you know, when they were looking at you on film, he wanted to see you against, you know, high major athletes on film, get some opinions before, you know, deciding whether to bring you to Michigan. I was curious, just in your thought process, how much did that factor into wanting to test yourself, you know, at the Big Ten level, or did, you know, what you did against Auburn last year in the tournament sort of prove that for you? Just kind of what your motivating, you know, factor was for trying to play at this level?
Yeah. Obviously, I'm sure that the game they analyzed most was probably the Auburn game, just the best look for them. And yeah, we won the game, and I had a solid game. And I mean, it started before that. It was just after the season, my family and I just knew I needed to not only prove myself against caliber guys such as the Auburns, the Texas A&M's, Big Ten competition night in and out. It was just challenging myself in practice every day, and I got to go against arguably one of the best centers in the country every day, and we have a bunch of other front court guys who challenge me, and I knew for what I needed and what I wanted with my basketball career, I needed to do that and make that step up. And I mean, in that Auburn game, I held my own pretty well, and we were able to come away with the win. But yeah, it was more so to just challenge myself and get myself better, to prove myself, I would say.
Down front here on the right.
Robbie LaStella, Bracketeer.org. My question's for Vlad. Vlad, Dusty mentioned that the key to this team gelling quickly was relationships and you guys being like-minded. Would you say there was a kind of certain point this season where it all clicked and you guys realized, like, okay, yeah, we can actually win this thing?
It's been happening all season. It doesn't happen in one day. It's like routine that like day by day, and it's just like getting better and better and better. And then one day you just look back and you might say it's clicking, but it's been a long process.
Back row on the far left.
Andrew Kahn, MLive.com. For any of you guys, I know you got to beat Auburn first, but the opportunity to play Michigan State, a rival, for a third time, get some revenge. Would you relish that opportunity, or doesn't matter to you?
I mean, as a team, we're not really worried about what's next for us. We got to take care of the task at hand, and then if we're able to take care of the task at hand, we'll deal with whatever's ahead.
Fourth row on the right side.
John Titel from Hoops HD for Trey. As far as Auburn football, I was curious how close you came to playing Auburn football, and since your uncle played Auburn football, who will he be cheering for?
I mean, that's crazy that you knew that. Not many people really know that my uncle played at Auburn. But I mean, I was close. I was extremely close. It became a reality because my basketball recruitment started so late, and the connection I had with the Auburn football staff, I really had a chance of playing there. But I mean, basketball is what I wanted to do, so that's why I took that route. But I was extremely close. And to the second part of your question, do with my uncle. My uncle's going to be here, and he will be cheering for Michigan.
Let's go on the far left, third row.
Yeah, Danny, you guys you found different ways to win in the first 2 games. What was it, 5 games in 9 days or something when you were playing Texas, physical game, down by 10 in the second half. Do you guys enjoy the role, I guess, of being underdogs or having just sort of a lot of things not going your way and finding a way to win? Do you guys relish that kind of role?
I think it started, earlier in the season. Michigan, the prior year, did not live up to Michigan standards. And obviously there were injuries and things of that nature. And when we came together in the summer, we knew what we were capable of, and we knew where we wanted to get Michigan basketball back to. And so I guess from that perspective, we had that underdog mentality, just given that the expectations weren't that high because of the prior year. And as soon as we started playing and meshing, we knew that we weren't really underdogs at that point because we had such a high-level team and high-level locker room and character. And we had a pretty good regular season, and we were in the race for a Big Ten title, and then that kind of slipped out of our fingers. And then from a public standpoint, our team everyone thought that we lost track, and they wrote the ship off. And then we knew what we were capable of. We never lost faith in each other or trust in each other. And obviously, we were looked at as underdogs in the Big Ten tournament, given what happened in the previous games. And then even in this tournament, everyone thought UCSD was going to win, and then a lot of people thought Texas A&M was going to win. And we just try to block out that outside noise and realize that people that have those opinions don't really need to affect us or have an impact on us. But we for sure play with a chip on our shoulder.
Back row on the far left again.
Andrew Kahn, MLive. The transfer portal is open right now. I know maybe that's not something any of you guys are exploring, but some of your teammates might be just a player's perspective on the fact that those decisions have to be made while the season is still happening.
Yeah. Obviously there was news last week about a player on our team entering the portal, and times are changing now, and it's college basketball is just going to such a unique and different place than what anyone's used to. And I don't want to speak to my thoughts on the portal being open during March Madness when teams are playing. And I think it's just from a perspective of a coach that's still coaching, it's a unique position to be in because you have to prepare for the biggest game of the year while also not getting behind the 8 ball. And I don't really know what our coaches are doing in terms of the portal, and that's not for us to worry about. But we rock with the guys we have, and everyone is still bought in, and things unfolded in ways that weren't expected last week. And we really just didn't put much thought into it and tried to look past it. And we have the biggest game of the year tomorrow night, and I don't think anyone on our team and I don't think any one of our coaches are going to be worrying about the portal the next 24 hours.
Far left, second row.
Peter Rauderkus from AL.com. Danny, you talked a little bit about the Auburn game last year already, but what are kind of the first things that come to mind for you when you think about that game, and what do you remember about the matchup with Janai Broome?
Yeah, obviously it was an unbelievable game for Yale. I want to think it was one of the highlights of my basketball career. Up and down game, and we had a clear underdog mentality that game, and but we knew how good we were and we knew we were capable of, and I think that's the same mentality this year, although albeit not as big of an underdog type of mentality. But yeah, and then from a matchup perspective, they started Janai at the 5 and Cardwell came off the bench, and so that was my matchup, and I thought I held my own, but I know that a year later I'm a far different player than I was last year, and now they obviously start Janai and Dylan, and arguably one of the best front courts in the country, and I like to think that our front court room is one of the best front courts in the country as well, and I know that we're all really excited for the opportunity, and it's not often that you get two elite front courts going at it this late in the season, and for myself, Vlad, Will, we're all very excited.
Back row on the aisle.
Hey guys, Gunter Schroeder with USA Today. Wanted to ask Danny and Trey, you guys matched up just last year in the NCAA tournament in that first round game. Obviously, Danny might have a bit more of fond memories than Trey in that one, but wanted to ask about, was there anything in particular you guys noticed about, playing each other for the first time, and what do you think each guy will bring to the table now that you're both on the same side trying to beat Auburn?
I was actually thinking about this last night. I never tell Trey this, but we were watching film as a team before the tournament, and we were watching film from the SEC tournament, and there wasn't a huge, because Trey came off the bench, and there wasn't that big of an emphasis placed on Trey, but when we saw the highlights, we all were like looking around and being like, I don't want to use bad words, but it was like, oh crap, like this kid can go. And I was actually thinking about this last night because I forgot which game it was in the SEC tournament, but I think he had 19 points or something, and he looked like a stud. And so from the moment that Michigan was telling me that they were recruiting him in the portal, and I kind of had an idea as to where I was going, and I knew it was a kid I wanted to play with, and you guys have kind of gotten a glimpse of that these last few weeks as to just the high-level player he is. But so yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Last question on the right, fourth row.
John Titel from Hoops HD for Vlad. Back in the day, you played at the U18 European Championship with great guys like Victor and against great players like Franz and Santa and Augustus and Musa. I was curious how that experience helps you for something like this, where you have to play great players the whole way, and or how it compares to the NCAA tournament.
I mean, it's pretty similar in environment when you play a tournament, and when it's one game, if you win, you play next. If you don't win, you obviously go home. But we've been playing against great players all year long, so it's not something that we haven't seen before.
Very good. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.